let's move on to the Biden side of the aisle, because we just this morning got the New York Times Siena poll on the Democratic side, and it is also very interesting. Let's put this up on the screen. So Biden has somewhat improved his position among Democrats, although a majority are still like, we'd rather have someone other than Biden. But here's some of the analysis from the New York Times. They say, warning signs abound for the president. Despite his improved standing and a friendlier national environment, Mr. Biden remains broadly unpopular among a voting public that is pessimistic about the country's future, and his approval rating is a mere 39%. Perhaps most worryingly for Democrats, the poll found Mr. Biden in a neck-and-neck race with former President Donald Trump, who held a commanding lead among likely Republican primary voters, as we were just discussing, even as he faces 2 criminal indictments and more potential charges on the horizon. Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump were tied at 43% apiece in a hypothetical rematch in 2024, according to the poll. Now, in terms of primary support, within this poll, Biden had the backing of 64% of Democratic primary voters who were intending on participating in the party's primaries. 13% were behind RFK Jr., and 10% chose Marianne Williamson. So even though you still have, and they've got some good quotes here, I'll read to you, voters who are on the Democratic side, they're not enthusiastic about Biden. They feel like they have no real choice. I think that the relentless message from the party leadership and from corporate media aligned with the Democratic Party that, listen, guys, Biden is effectively the only candidate in the race, and we're just going to ignore these other 2. I think that's worked. You've got a couple of quotes here that I want to share with you. One individual who said about Trump and Biden, I'm sorry, but both of them to me are too old. Biden to me seems less mentally capable age-wise, but Trump is just evil. He's done horrible things. That is the case that the Democratic Party is hoping is going to resonate with the American public. Like, listen, you may not be in love with Joe Biden, but look at the alternative. You have a 38-year-old woman, government analyst from Atlanta, who described herself as political progressive, not aligned with the party, who said Mr. Biden's tax policy had been skewed to favor the wealthy while the middle class paid more than its fair share. Quote, we're kind of smushed in the middle. We're taking the brunt of the taxes for everybody. She did say she'd vote for Biden again, but added she wouldn't do so with much gusto. It's basically like I don't have another choice because I don't feel comfortable not voting, she said.
Yeah, I mean, on the Democratic side, it's pathetic whenever you're only getting 2/3 or whatever people to support you. So let's just leave that aside. The big headline to me was the Trump. I mean, the actual head-to-head one versus him. I mean, he is actually tied in this poll, Krystal, at 43% apiece in a rematch in 2024. That's a terrible position to be in as an incumbent president, especially 2 years out. You know, we really have not yet heard the full critique of Donald Trump in an actual, like, media circus environment of a full 2024 campaign. He theoretically should be stronger right now than he ever has been. The counter to that could be, oh, well, Biden hasn't yet made his case to the American people. I mean, my counter would be, you're the president. You get to make your case every day. Yeah. Also, you are getting older every day, which is part of the problem as to why people are very skeptical of you. I mean, this really does confirm a couple of things. Trump is still dramatically electable. As much as people want to count him out, this New York Times poll, I saw a CNN story yesterday kind of preparing the liberals, just being like, guys, Trump could actually win. Yeah. And it's true. I mean, I've always said this. When you are the nominee of a major party, you can win the presidency. But then with Trump, he is always underestimated. Yes, I understand 2022 didn't go well. It's true. 2018 didn't go well either. But he won the freaking presidency. You can't deny it. He only lost 44,500 votes. And I just checked. The 2020 poll that came out October 2020, New York Times Siena, is actually a poll historically biased against Trump in terms of his favor. They had Biden up 51-42 in the last poll of October 2020. So if they have him tied, Trump-Biden, I'm giving Trump +4. Historically, that's what it usually has come down to. Didn't seem to work in 2022, but to me, that was because Trump himself wasn't on the ballot. This man, he's like a magician. Like, I don't know what exactly it is, but in terms of getting people actually to the polls to come out to vote, he seems singularly enabled to do that as a politician. It's one of the rarest things you'll ever see in politics.
So I have that CNN piece from Harry Enton, who's like their data guy, analysis of the polls, and the headline that he has here is the chance of Trump winning another term is very real. Yeah. And one of the things he says that I think people really need to internalize, Trump is not only in a historically strong position for a non-incumbent to win the Republican nomination, but he is in a better position to win the general election than at any point during the 2020 cycle and almost at any point during the 2016 cycle. Keep in mind, with Donald Trump in 2016, he was almost always polling behind Hillary. With Biden in 2020, it looked like it was going to be a blowout if you were just looking at the polls. He has very rarely been looking at polls where he was actually in the poll itself tied with his Democratic opponent. So now listen, he's facing a number of other charges. He's going to be going to trial before this election. He could be facing prison time. That's a very real possibility. And I have to think that that is not going to be an easy thing for him to be able to overcome. So there are a lot of wild cards out there, but I think people need to take very seriously the fact that Joe Biden is an extraordinarily weak Democratic nominee. For all the people out there who are really concerned about electability, you know, and if God forbid, in my opinion, Donald Trump gets reelected, they need to take a really, really critical lens to the Democratic Party and the fact that they shut this process out. They did not allow voters to have a choice. They said you have to be stuck with this man that an overwhelming majority of Americans are like, this guy's just too old.
Yeah. I mean, it's been obvious from day one. They're playing with fire. You know, if they believe that Trump is an existential, which they say all the time, who knows if it's whether they believe it or not. Well, if you lose, it's your fault. 100%. It's on you. And more that I'm reading, Krystal, while Stop the Steal is a problem, while the criminal cases are a problem, you know, every one of us can recite the litany of problems. He's a strong politician, man.
Yeah.
When it comes to, like, anytime we see like a very serious look at his real support against Biden, specifically in the swing states and all that, I always come away with the same thought of this man, he's getting awful close to the Oval Office right now, especially when you peg it to how the media and all these other people are painting his chances. And so look, be a fool and count him out if you want to.
Yeah.
But, you know, I would not advise it.
The one thing that I'll put on the other side of that equation for Joe Biden is, you know, the economy does seem to be improving. Inflation does seem to be going down. Although, you know, if you ask American voters, they still are not feeling it really in terms of an improved economy. The mood is very, very negative. But, you know, my instinct is that the charges and the criminal jeopardy for Trump, well, it doesn't matter in a Republican primary, could be damaging to him in a general election. But on the other hand, I mean, it's not like people don't know what he did on January 6th. It's not like people don't know that he's facing these charges, et cetera. So listen, it's a jump ball right now. I think that's all we can say. And to me, yes, it speaks to the strength of Trump as a politician, but for me, Trump's success and very near success in 2020 has always been a deep reflection of how weak the Democratic Party is and how little they live up to their promises and actually deliver for people. So I think it's pathetic that they should be in this position going into this election season. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.